You know how some arguments in NASCAR never really go away? Well, Richard Childress has been holding on to something for decades, and he's not letting it go anytime soon. Richard Childress is one of the biggest names in NASCAR history. He's the guy who gave Dale Earnhardt his ride and built one of the most successful racing teams ever. But there's one thing that still bothers him after all these years. It's about a race that happened way back in 1979, and it involves a driver named Cale Yarborough. 1979 Daytona 500 was a huge deal. It was the first time a NASCAR race was shown on TV from start to finish. Millions of people across America watched it. Most folks remember that race because of a big fight that happened at the end. Cale Yarborough got into a crash with Donnie Allison on the last lap, and then there was a fistfight on the track. It made national news and helped NASCAR become way more popular. But Richard Childress remembers that race for a different reason. He was racing that day too, and something happened that he thinks wasn't fair. During the race, Cale Yarborough's car got some damage. The rules back then said that if your car was too damaged, you had to fix it in the garage area, not just on pit road. Childress believes Yarborough's team broke this rule. They went behind the wall and made repairs that were illegal, Childress said years later. He's talking about how Yarborough's crew fixed the car in a way that shouldn't have been allowed. According to Childress, Yarborough's car had serious damage to the front end. The team took the car to the garage and did major repairs. Then they brought the car back out and kept racing. Childress thinks this gave Yarborough an unfair advantage and that NASCAR officials should have done something about it. The thing is, NASCAR didn't penalize Yarborough or his team. The race went on, and Yarborough finished in a much better position than he would have if his car had stayed damaged. Meanwhile, Childress and other drivers who followed the rules didn't get that same chance to make big repairs and keep going. We protested it, but nothing happened, Childress explained. He's talking about how his team filed an official complaint with NASCAR, but the officials didn't change anything. This bothered Childress at the time, and it still bothers him today. He's not the type of person to forget when he thinks something wasn't done right. Racing is his whole life, and fairness matters a lot to him. When you spend your entire career trying to win races the right way, it stings when you think someone else got away with breaking the rules. Childress has brought this story up in interviews over the years. He doesn't talk about it all the time, but when the subject of the 1979 Daytona 500 comes up, he makes sure people know what he saw. He wants everyone to understand that there was more to that race than just the famous fight. Some people might wonder why Childress is still upset about something that happened so long ago. But in NASCAR, history matters. 1979 Daytona 500 is one of the most important races ever. It helped turn NASCAR into the huge sport it is today. If there were rule violations in that race, it's a big deal. Plus, racing is personal. Drivers and team owners remember every race, every call by officials, and every time they think something wasn't fair. It doesn't matter if it was last week or 40 years ago, the feeling stays with them. Cale Yarborough was a legend in NASCAR. He won 3 championships in a row from 1976 to 1978. He was tough, fast, and didn't back down from anybody. His team was run by Junior Johnson, another huge name in racing. When you have a driver and team that's successful, people watch everything they do very closely. Yarborough and his team never admitted to doing anything wrong in that 1979 race. They said they fixed their car and got back out there, which was what any team would try to do. But Childress and some other people in the garage thought it went too far. The rules in NASCAR back then weren't always super clear. Sometimes officials had to make judgment calls about what was okay and what wasn't. That could lead to situations where some teams pushed the limits and got away with it. Other teams, like Childress's, followed the rules more strictly and felt like they got punished for it. This debate shows how much NASCAR has changed over the years. Today, the rules are much more detailed. NASCAR has cameras everywhere and technology that can catch almost anything. Back in 1979, things were different. There were fewer officials watching, and teams could sometimes do things that wouldn't fly today. Childress has seen all these changes happen. He's been in NASCAR for more than 50 years. He's watched the sport grow from racing on dirt tracks to filling huge stadiums. He's seen technology take over and rules become stricter, but he still remembers the old days when things were looser and sometimes unfair. The interesting thing about Childress is that he's not usually someone who complains a lot. He's known for being tough and no-nonsense. He built his racing team from nothing and turned it into a powerhouse. He's won championships and big races. He's put drivers like Dale Earnhardt and Kevin Harvick in his cars. People respect him because he works hard and doesn't make excuses. That's why it means something when he talks about the 1979 Daytona 500. He's not just whining about losing a race. He genuinely believes that what happened wasn't right, and he thinks it should be remembered as part of the story. "I'll never forget it," Childress has said. "It was wrong then, and it's still wrong now." These words show how strongly he feels. For Childress, this isn't just about one race. It's about integrity in the sport he loves. It's about making sure that racing stays fair and that everyone has to follow the same rules. Other people who were around NASCAR in 1979 have different opinions. Some agree with Childress that Yarborough's team shouldn't have been allowed to make those repairs. Others think it was just good, smart racing, and that NASCAR made the right call by letting it go. That's how it is with controversial moments in sports. People see the same thing and come away with totally different views. 1979 Daytona 500 will always be famous because of that last-lap crash and fight. That's what got shown on the news and what people still talk about today. But for Richard Childress, there's a whole other story from that race. It's a story about rules, fairness, and how one decision by officials can stick with someone for their entire life. NASCAR has had plenty of controversial moments over the years. There have been disputes about rules, penalties, and whether officials made the right calls. Some of these controversies get resolved quickly. Others, like the one Childress is still upset about, never really go away. What makes this situation unique is how long Childress has held on to it. Most people would let something from 45 years ago fade into the background, but not Childress. He remembers it like it happened yesterday. That shows how much racing means to him and how seriously he takes competition. Today, Richard Childress Racing is still one of the top teams in NASCAR. They compete every week and have young drivers trying to win races and championships. Childress himself is in his late 70s now, but he's still involved with the team. He still comes to the track and watches his cars race. And every once in a while, when someone asks him about the old days or about the 1979 Daytona 500, he tells the story again. He talks about what he saw, what he thinks happened, and why it still matters. It's his way of keeping the record straight and making sure people know the full story. Some fans love that Childress won't let it go. They think it shows he's passionate and cares about doing things right. Other fans think he should move on and focus on the present. But either way, it's clear that this moment shaped how Childress sees NASCAR and competition. Richard Childress is still upset, and he probably always will be. That's just who he is. He's a racer who believes in fairness, hard work, and following the rules. When he thinks those values were violated, he doesn't forget it. 1979 Daytona 500 might have made NASCAR famous, but for Childress, it's a reminder that not everything in racing is as perfect as it seems.